And I'm very pleased to welcome the Honorable Lurita A. Doan. She's the 18th Administrator of the General Services Administration. Prior to becoming GSA Administrator in May 2006, Ms. Doan was the President of New Technology Management, Inc., a company she founded in 1990. Ms. Doan, we want to welcome you to our hearing today. I want to tell you that your prepared statement will be in the record in full. We'd like to ask, if you would, to try to limit your oral presentation to around 5 minutes, but we will not be strict on that because it's important that we hear from you. It's the practice of this committee to put all witnesses under oath, and I'd like to ask you to stand and please raise your right hand to take the oath of office. You promise, swear, and affirm that you will tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. The record will indicate the witness answered in the affirmative. We're pleased that you're here, and I'm going to now recognize you for your comments.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Davis, and members of the committee, I appreciate the invitation to appear before you today to address the matters raised in the March 6th invitation. This is my first time testifying as Administrator of the General Services Administration. You know, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is one of my favorite movies, but I have to admit that I never thought that I would be living the movie. And yet, here I am. Thank you for the opportunity to resolve a number of issues that have appeared in the media. I welcome this opportunity to set the record straight. I've submitted a detailed written testimony, but let me highlight the key elements. They are fiscal discipline, oversight, and results. First, the cost of imposing fiscal discipline. Within hours of assuming office this past June, I initiated a line-by-line review of the entire GSA budget. We had over a $100 million deficit for fiscal year 06. We had flunked our annual audit. The revenue from FY05 to FY06 had plunged by over $4 billion. Morale was low, and there was talk of mandatory buyouts. I had 3 goals: eliminate sources of wasteful spending, apply oversight equally to all divisions within GSA, achieve results by encouraging GSA employees to innovate, improve GSA performance, and save taxpayer money. These were priorities I had identified in my confirmation hearing. We identified and eliminated non-performing programs. We hacked unnecessary travel to places like Australia and Kuala Lumpur. GSA divisions cut spending by 9%, and we didn't even have to touch employee salaries. It was with great pride that we submitted a budget to OMB with retroactive cuts for fiscal year 06, fiscal year 07, and even proposed cuts in fiscal year 08. GSA employees knew that sources of wasteful spending, and they were elated to know that under me there were no sacred cows. Today, through the hard work of our GSA team, our morale is improved. GSA was recently ranked as one of the top 10 best places to work in federal government. We have a balanced budget, and we got a clean audit. I'm really proud of the transformational changes made to the GSA schedule process, where we just awarded our first GSA schedule within 30 days of the application. Only 10 months ago, the average time was 157 days. The FAST reorganization is successfully underway, and GSA has turned around and created a positive relationship with the judiciary and the Department of Defense, and these are our 2 biggest customers. We did all of this in 10 months. Bold, new leadership was what the President wanted, and that's exactly what he got at GSA. The early fiscal discipline is now yielding improved performance, but I'm going to tell you, change is difficult, and not everyone wants to improve. Some cling to the old and refuse to cut spending and will do anything to protect bureaucratic turf. And this is what happened at GSA. And I believe the Office of the Inspector General may have been angered by any suggestion that their operations could be improved or that any spending could be cut. I probably should have predicted what followed. Investigations intended to intimidate were launched but never ended, and the old-fashioned squeeze was on. I refused to yield, and I still believe that my actions were right. But I'm going to tell you, I'm not a perfect person. I make mistakes, and honestly, I'm probably going to make a few more, but there was no wrongdoing. In Washington, it seems to me that budgets are fiercely protected, but that sometimes these legitimate policy disputes cross the line and become personal attacks, and I believe that this is what happened to me. But, Mr. Chairman, you do not face the administrator of GSA, but the full fury of an absolutely angry mom when someone from this committee alleged that 3 years ago there was some wrongdoing involving my then 14-year-old daughter who participated in a mandatory school-wide community service program as an intern to Senator Debbie Stabenow. 3 years ago, long before I entered public office. I am sure you know Senator Stabenow, and I am sure you know that she would never do anything that's wrong. I know that this attack was probably inserted in the invitation by a too eager staffer who thought that blood sport involving children was acceptable. To that committee staffer who thought that attacking one of my kids would be fair game, let me tell you directly, shame on you. Shame on you for getting so caught up in the give and take of politics that you lost your sense of decency and fair play and let partisan passions overwhelm good judgment. Shame on you for not thinking through the terrible and unintended consequences on good people everywhere interested in public service. You know, like Jimmy Stewart and Mr. Smith, I stand here, I'm going to be honest, I'm facing a gazillion allegations. But the curious thing is that all of these allegations stem from a single source, and all of them became public as a direct result of my attempts to impose fiscal discipline throughout GSA. I knew that when I moved to restore fiscal discipline and bring some sunshine to poor managerial practices that I was going to be in for a lot of criticism. But I was surprised by the scandal-mongering involving attacks on children that I now have hate mail sent to my home and am vilified in the national media. The time to focus on the facts has come and the political points that can be scored from trumped-up charges put away. When you examine my testimony, and I hope that you will take the time to read it, I know it's a little lengthy, I hope that you will see that each of these different allegations and attacks on my character are groundless, that I did not interfere, and that I was simply exercising my right as administrator to know what was going on at the General Services Administration. But I think that this hearing is important for two other far more important reasons. The first regards wasteful spending. I think that what we say and what we do here today could set the tone for how other federal agencies look at oversight and accountability, and how aggressively they are to be in identifying and eliminating specific causes of wasteful spending. GSA, as far as I know, was the only federal agency that submitted a budget that voluntarily called for retroactive cuts to its budget. It took courage to do that, but I fear that if it becomes common practice for agency heads to face a never-ending barrage of personal attacks for doing so, that you can be sure that no such effort, it's never going to be made again. Second, this hearing could possibly, it seems to me, set the atmosphere for how we approach the issue of oversight. Much of my testimony deals with my determination to extend oversight and accountability equally throughout GSA divisions, including the Office of the Inspector General. Those of us in government we have a great opportunity to begin an important dialogue that has at its core two questions. First, is oversight something that applies equally to all spending decisions? Or should oversight and accountability only be applied to selective government organizations or programs? So I thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to answering your questions, and I hope that I'll give you a chance to get to know me just a little bit better. Thank you.